Howdy, 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 and welcome to another episode of the DirtInfo Podcast. This week, Carter and I will chat the Clash on the Coast, USMTS, and a slew of regional late model racing. We'll also take a peek at this upcoming weekend's racing schedule, and as always, we'll send you home with one for the road. Carter's playing a little hurt today, so I'll tell y'all where to find us across the social media platforms. The podcast that you're watching right now is available on YouTube. It's also available on Spotify and Apple. In short form, you can find us on TikTok and Instagram, and in long written form, you can find us on Facebook and always at dirtinfo.com. Carter, I know you're a little under the weather, so what did you remember watching this weekend as far as racing?
Going into the weekend, I planned on watching all of the Southern Nationals and then Cherokee on Sunday. And then I pretty much only watched Friday of the Southern Nationals because I was out of it for Saturday, Sunday. Friday at Swainsboro, though, going into the night, the track was looking like it was going to be one lane, but come feature time, it widened out pretty good, and it was surprisingly entertaining. I didn't realize how flat Swainsboro was. It's like there's like no banking, it seems, but Madden, I believe, started on the pole and won, but then I think it was Dotson that was first started running the top, and then he cleaned off the top, and then Harrington joined him, and a few others, and then I think Harrington second, and I can't remember who was third, but
Trey Mills.
yes,
Trey
Trey Mills, and then
Mills.
Dotson took fourth.
Right
But
on.
so that
Yeah.
race, I was worried at first, but it ended up being pretty good. And then another race that I want to touch on that I watched a week ago on the day we're recording this was the first day of the Clash on the Coast at Northwest Florida, the stock car feature, and specifically. I was in the gym parking lot as it started, and I was like, "Well, I'm gonna sit here and watch this quick," and that was probably the best one of the best features I've seen. Well, for sure all year. I mean, we're not very far into it,
We're
but
not deep into it.
they were they were three wide coming to the checkered. There
Mhm.
was a questionable slider by the Presley Harrington who ended up winning, but then causing that him and second got slowed down. Third place came out of nowhere on the bottom, and they were three wide crossing the finish line. And
Yeah.
and I guess too the live timing wasn't working during that race, so they had a hand score it. So I was just sitting there like, all right, who won? Just waiting to go in the gym, waiting to find out who won the race. But I was very entertained with that one.
Yeah. And the guy who won, he races up by you, right?
Yeah, he runs pretty much by all the tracks by me, 141, Seymour, Luxembourg, and stuff. So he was in street stocks a couple years ago. I think this is his second year in a stock car, second or third. But yeah, I see him run all the time by me. So
Right on. Yeah, I think I saw it was his first win in a stock car. I don't
yes,
know if I can verify that, but okay. Right
yeah,
on.
at least in an IMCA sanctioned race. He may have won
Yeah.
like a non-sanctioned race. I might not be aware of. I know he has
Yeah.
some street stock wins, but for sure his first IMCA sanctioned stock car win. So
Yeah. Hell of a way to get the first win. Yeah, I mean that thing blew up on social media, so you know a lot of people have seen his first win. But I think speaking of Clash on the Coast, real quick. So, like you mentioned, it was Presley Harrington
yep,
won the first one. Just I don't know. Let's just recap. I'll just recap real quick the stock car. So, he won night one. Mike Vandermark Jr. won night two. Jim Horeshi.
Horsch. I think it's Jim Horsch.
Horshi?
That's how I've always said
Horish?
it.
Okay.
Horsch.
All right. He took night three when they ended up at Southern, and then Damon Murdy won the finale. And then Mike Vandermark Jr., who I believe was part of that
Yeah, he
photo
was the
finish.
one that was in third, and I thought he actually won it at first, but he was the one that was in third that almost ended up winning
It
it.
was he the one
So,
coming on the bottom?
yep, that was him.
Yeah, I thought that guy won. Yeah, I thought that guy won too, for sure. So, yeah, definitely. So yeah, and then on the modified side, we had Austin Harnick won the first two races. And then when they ended up going to Southern, Austin Becerra won the opener at Southern, and then
Deep South.
Deep South. I keep seeing Southern. Sorry.
They were at
Deep
Southern
South.
last
Yes.
year. So I kept
Yeah.
thinking they're at Southern, and I knew they were at Deep South. So
Okay. Yeah. So at Deep South. So then Becerra won the first night and Jonathan Joyner won the second night. And
was it
Austin
Jonathan or Joseph?
Joseph. I'm admittedly flustered. My light cut out at some point when we were recording, and I'm like, God, I'm so dark. So sorry for the technical difficulties. But anyway, yes, it was Joseph Joyner, who actually kind of linking the two things you watched together. He took second at Cherokee on Sunday, if I recall correctly. Joseph Joyner did. And then
I'd believe it. Couldn't confirm.
you watched it, but you don't remember. So anyway, speaking of that, so it's just crazy. Saturday he wins. Sunday he takes second in the late model. The winner of that one was Zach Mitchell up at Cherokee on Sunday for they raced for 15K.
Yeah.
Yep. So Mitchell won. Jonathan or Joseph Joyner. We need to go back to just one Joyner racing. That was easier. Joseph Joyner too, and then Chris Ferguson in his season debut was third. So and then also I guess I don't know, maybe just to tie it all together and link it all together. There was another one of those Schaefer's races on Saturday at Sonoya. Cody Overton won that with Dotson taking second and Winger taking third. So Dotson ran pretty darn well. And then Harrington continued a hot weekend by picking up that win at Eastern Alabama as
Yeah,
well.
that
So
was 10K, I'm pretty sure.
yeah. I think I saw somewhere on the interwebs that was the first like win for Rocket this year in a Rocket chassis. So I don't mean to laugh or make light of anyone's plight, but if that's the case, holy cow, they've fallen on hard times this year. So anyway, well, what I watched USMTS. I said last week that's what I was going to be glued to, and I absolutely was. Starting with the arms race on Thursday, which saw Tanner Mullins won that, but to me the big storyline was the Smith brothers kind of rolled in. Mark and Nathan Smith rolled in right before draw close, if I understand it correctly, and proceeded to go like 1 and 2 in their qualifying heats or in their qualifiers because they're qualifying in now, so they qualified 1-2 in their half, and then Mark Smith was out leading a good probably half the feature. And he spun while leading, but it was minorly controversial at least because there was a wreck in 3 and 4 with some folks back in the pack as he spun out in 1 and 2, and they called the caution on him and sent him to the back. Yeah. So like just a bad time to find a banana peel, I guess. So he proceeded to drive back up to 10th, but what a bummer. Because like even the announcers are like, oh, caution, we've got 2 cars together in 3 and 4. And then they're like, oh, and the leaders around in 1 and 2. And then like, well, we're gonna wait and see what happens. And it turns out they called the caution on the leader. They said he was the cause of the caution. Obviously I'm not live and I don't have cameras on both, so I don't know for sure, but just a bummer for him. So he drove up to second. Tanner Mullins won. And then USMTS, so that was arms on Thursday, still on Racing Dirt. So to me, it was almost all the same guys. But anyway, USMTS's season officially then kicked off Friday. The champ defended his title on opening night. So Jim Chisholm drove forward a handful of spots for the W. And
Sorry.
he didn't.
Dog
No
wanted
worries.
to go out.
Dog wanted to go out. I know what that means. If it happens again in a few minutes, it means Dog wanted to come
Yeah.
back in, y'all. So, but anyway, so Friday, Jim Chisholm won. He led most all of it after he moved forward a hand bit, but Rodney Sanders did not make it easy. Tanner Mullins, after winning Thursday, came through a B to still finish on the podium. And then Joe Chisholm and Kyle Strickler kind of put on a bit of a show. They were sort of the show whenever Rodney would fall back off Jim. They were going high low for half the race, and it was a pretty bottom dominant racetrack, but Joe was somehow making the top work in 1 and 2 and carrying speed, and they were trading lanes in 3 and 4. So it was an interesting race. I mean, Jim comes out and wins big, so it's it was kind of like his way of stamping a claim on the season. And then anyway, Saturday turns out his little brother not to be outdone, so Joe actually won on Saturday. So Chisholm sweep, just two different Chisholms. And then that one, Tanner Mullins, that name keeps popping up. So our buddy Brad likes to say the Mullins Gen 3.1 is showing promise, but it really is. 3 shows, 3 podiums, pretty good show for him. And then Terry Phillips battled to third in that one. So anyway, that's kind of like the rundown, a little bit of kind of how the racing action happened. I'm going to throw a couple thoughts at you. If you have any questions, just fire them off at me. But anyway.
I do have one thought. I didn't watch, but I noticed on my race pass, 8 o'clock start time for heat races, kind of wild.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on that. That's where I was going next. So thanks for the segue. Yeah, like Thursday's program was really long. Thursday's program was pretty long. I actually went to dinner for my dad's birthday, forgot to bring cake to the restaurant, went to my dad's house afterwards, brought cake, and then made it back to the house and still caught like most of the racing program. So that was wild. Also, I think on Arms had the biggest car count with 51, but they had six heats for 51 cars, and I think they were all 10 laps as well. So we had more laps than cars in the heat, and I don't know. That felt a bit much, especially the next day with USMTS. That was like my gripe with USMTS on Friday, because I actually true story, fell asleep during the under features and woke up for the USMTS feature on Friday. Like, that's kind of how late that show sort of ran too. So it was good on Sunday to have them go down to 4 heats. That made more sense for 50 cars. I know that you and Ryan have strong opinions on car counts and heat numbers, but I just thought 6 was too many for in 50
Oh yeah,
cars.
I don't like when tracks run like I've seen like 20 cars in 4 heats. It's like what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I sort of
fine.
feel like just about any time the laps of the heat is more than the cars in the heat, we've got something off. We need to reevaluate. In
I
my opinion, I just feel like that's a
I
good way
think
of
like
looking at it.
10 in the heat. If you can do 10 in the heat is like perfect. And if you have to do like
Yeah.
11, like if they had what 51, if you had to do one heat with 11 cars and do 5 heats
Yeah.
that way, I think that's way better than. But although if you did 4 heats with 50, that'd put what like 12 in a
12-ish,
which
12 to
even that
13.
ain't terrible. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if
I'm an 8
they
to
did
10 guy
split,
in a heat race. That's my
yeah,
ideal number.
they did split qualifying. So like,
Oh, you
I
kind of had to
get,
do even heats.
yeah, but you could do 2. I mean, if you qualified 25th in your qualifying, like you don't have, I don't know, what's the difference of starting 8th or 10th? I don't know. That's just kind of the way I look at it. But anyway, so it was good. I agree with you. That was a late start time, and then the show format kind of drug it on to be a little bit of a long show the first couple of nights, but they did rectify that come Saturday. The other thing too that I kind of want to mention, I brought them up a little bit, but the Smith brothers showed up. They were fast all weekend. They didn't quite get the results, but Nathan had a 7th on Saturday. I mentioned, Mark was leading and had a 10th, and then made all 3 features. So they were poking and prodding them anytime they made it on Racing Dirt to see if they were going to join the tour, and they're non-committal, but I guess I'm just fingers crossed. I may or may not have told the story before, but I bought a victory fuel from Nathan Smith at the Big Deal at MTS. So like, obviously I'm rooting for them to be on tour because I'm going to be at a bunch of those shows, and I'd like to buy another victory fuel from him. So, and then I think the last thing I just want to touch on, I'm so pumped. We got like 14 to 20 full timers, depending on how a few things break out. And I guess I sort of broke the news on Thursday that Kyle Strickler was full-time USMTS, but with Strickler, Chisholm, Joe looking super fast, and then Mullins and Sanders. I mean, I mentioned their names a bunch. They were at the front of the field all weekend long. I mean, that's 5 of probably, and there's probably a few guys I'm not talking about. Alex Williamson had a bounce back to start the season with a couple of top 10s. Kyle Brown had a bounce back with a couple of top 10s. Reese Solander finished 5th, I believe, on Saturday and was in somewhere around the same spot on Friday before Mechanical Gremlins. So it's just like we might not have Jake Tim or Dan Ebert. We may have graduated a few guys over, but I feel like it's still going to be a grinder. I don't think it's just you can't just hand it to Jim. I mean, Joe is leading the points right now. I know that when I mentioned I might talk about points, you gave me them eyes, Carter. But I'll just point out that Joe is leading the points, after 2 races. So, it really, I think it could be a really grinder of a season. That last year we were set up really well for a Jake Tim versus Jim Chisholm run, and we were kind of robbed of that with weather. So hopefully, with just a deeper field this year, we'll get that meat grinder down the stretch and have whoever ends up being the eventual winner have to work for it. So that's
I
my
got
thoughts.
I got a question that you would care more about. Would you like to see USMTS do a thing how the late World of Outlaw late models have, where you know who's like committed going into it? Like with Woo, they have like the loyalty thing. I don't like it in late models because there's 2 series, and I like but with mods or USMTS, there's no other national series like where it's like, oh, they could flip here. Now I don't know if they're going to flip or not. But with that, I feel like it would be nice to know going into it, like, oh, okay, these guys as of now are committed to run it.
Yeah, I would love for folks to make their plans at least more widely known. Um, but I also think it's a bit of nature of the beast with the USMTS. I don't want to speak on anyone's financial situation, but I do know, like, I remember seeing Dylan Thornton when he was going up and down the road. It was a pickup truck and a single car trailer and him and himself. So it's not like these are huge racing outfits. Sometimes it's, we hope to run the whole thing, but if bad luck, strikes at the wrong time, we can't make that full commitment. And so, I get why we don't see as much of it, but I would love to see more of it, just because I think it's a really good product. I mean, they added a dice roll for the format, so they qualify in and then they dice roll for the invert. They do the choose cone. The racing's phenomenal. I mean, I can think right off the top of my head at least 5 times I've seen it pass for the win on the last lap at a USMTS race. Just like the racing is just that good. So anyway, yeah, to your point, I wish they would announce it so we could have a little bit of excitement and a build up leading into the season, a little bit more than just having to watch MRP entries and be like, oh, okay, those guys showed up. So of those, here's who I think could.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm not even
Yeah.
saying like make them pay money or anything to get the extra
Right.
points, just like a way to like, okay, as of now, this guy does plan to run it. Like, like
Hmm.
if they drop off, they drop off. But like they going into the season, they want to run the whole thing kind of thing. Would just be
Yeah.
nice to know.
Yeah. It definitely would. Um, because I don't know the the 12th guy in the standings most nights is a contender in the USMTS, right? If the setup's good, he's a contender. So like, there's a lot more winners. I mean, yes, Jim Chisholm's in the Stricklers potentially this year and stuff. Like those guys win more, but like everyone, there's always guys winning. It's not the same faces all the time. So yeah, it would be nice to know a little bit more because a lot of those guys are worth rooting for. Like Alex Williamson, right here on my wall. Like that guy's pretty local to me. I picked that up at Deer Creek, and I think he's going to run the whole thing. But even he said on Facebook, like we have to take this week by week and see what makes the most sense for us because it is he's up here in Minnesota. It's expensive to go race in Texas for 3 weekends in a row or 2 weekends in a row like they're going to be doing. So Anyway, to transition a little bit, USMTS is racing this weekend again at Rocket. Um, so another pair of 5,000 to win shows. Um, that's what I'll be watching and probably what I'll be talking about again next week. Hey, Carter, did you notice that fancy thumbnail we had for this episode?
Oh, you mean the one you can find on markandersonimages.com or on his Facebook, Mark Anderson Images?
Yeah, that one. Also, just want to thank Mark so much for teaming up with us. We'll be using his photos throughout the year. Mark's a track photographer at Ogilvy and Princeton, so I'll definitely run into him at least a little bit this season. But all the same, thanks, Mark. We appreciate it. So.
I wish I knew what I was watching this week. I should have looked at Flo's schedule or something.
Well, that perfect segue to kind of what's on what to look forward to. So, obviously, USMTS. Something I don't even know that you can watch, but something I'll be watching MRP for is Brownstown has the Northern All Stars late models and modifieds trying to run again after they got canceled last weekend. Oh, hey, you have your HTF subscription for the month, so this Saturday HTF opens at I-75. I think it's 25K to win.
Yeah, I don't know how much. You did
20,
remind me that
20.
I am busy Saturdays, so I can't even watch the Hunt the Front race on Hunt the Front TV. But
Oh man,
I do
go
like
figure.
I-75 though. Every time like a bigger race is scheduled there, it always gets canceled or something. The Outlaws had a race there that got canceled. Flow Night in America was supposed to run there this year. That got moved somewhere else. I always want to see that track, and it always gets moved. And then of course this weekend, I'm busy on the one day I can watch it. So
Well, you have this. You can go back and
yeah,
watch it on
exactly.
Sunday.
That's
Yeah.
probably what I'll do, honestly.
So, and then I think you once told me that comp cams is on your naughty list because they're not on Flow anymore, but they're running this weekend at Boot Hill. I think I saw
Another
Cade
track I
Dillard
like.
will be there.
Big fan of
Yeah,
Boot Hill.
yeah. Cade Dillard's gonna be there. He has a chance to pick up about 15K over the weekend. I think they're doing a 10 and a 5 and then a 10 there, and then yeah, I think that's all I saw that was coming up. So take your pick. You're busy Saturday, so really you're just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a look through Flow. Maybe get my DirtVision subscription re-upped and watch Outlaws and wherever. I think they're at Magnolia or Talladega, one of the two. They're at both those tracks. I don't know which day, but the sprint cars that is. So
Yeah.
we'll find something.
Shows how much I paid attention to sprint cars. Huh. And I'll probably go to a few shows this year, so I don't mean to act like I'm all above it. It's just not really on my radar right now, I guess. USMTS kicked off, man. They're going back to back. That's my jam. So anyway, I think that wraps up most everything we were going to touch on, which means only one thing, Carter. It's time for
The one for the road. And mine will be something that we probably should have mentioned last week, but forgot about was the 10,000 to win for USRA stock cars at I think it's Sandia Speedway. It's in New Mexico. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yep.
But the person who won is Cole Sharneski, who's also from my area, just like Presley Harrington. And he started 12th, I believe, and I think they locked in 12 from Thursday and Friday, and he was the last one to get locked in. And then they probably did some B mains to get more. But he ended up winning it, which he kind of looked like just from my race pass results, he kind of struggled the first 2 days. So when he won, I was kind of surprised, but more money going back to Wisconsin, I guess.
heck yeah. I apologize if you said it, but it was 10K to win, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Big money show. I saw that Josh Kane finished second, so
Yep.
you've taken some pot shots along the way in this podcast, so it made me giggle when I saw that. That was a
I'm
USRA show too.
Yep, and an IMCA guy showed up and took the money.
Yep.
So I also saw that the guy that you and Brad and stuff mentioned a lot, that I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
Gallardo.
yeah, he was there too in a stock car.
Yeah,
Lost to
I think I
Cole.
saw. Yeah, I saw a few of those guys there. I think Mr. Rob, another podcast favorite, I actually think he was there in a B mod. So, but But yeah, I did notice a lot of auto guys there. 10K show, that's big money for stock cars, and Cole comes all the way down from Wisconsin and leaves with the cash.
Yep.
Right on. Right on. All right. Well, so my one for the road is still USMTS. You guys are gonna get sick of this. I swear I watch other stuff, but right now, that's my jam. It is my favorite series. No shame in that. It's my favorite series. But anyway, on Thursday, in the middle of the feature, there was unfortunately an extended red flag stop because track photographer Buck Munson unfortunately was hit by a modified during the feature. And the show was stopped. Thankfully, he was okay. I believe he said the only thing broken was a lens adapter. So I'd followed the updates on social media. But I guess he took a picture in Victory Lane with Tanner Mullins on Thursday after the incident. I believe he signed the door panel of Sean Gaddis, who I believe was the car that made contact with him. He signed the door panel the following day. He even posted the final picture from his camera that night, which was Gaddis pointed straight at him. So they appear to be making light of the situation, and he appears to be fine. But what a wild situation, just all around. One, that he got hit. Two, that he's fine. Like these bumps, bruises, the gash on his leg, everything like that. But like, fine. He went back to the track the next 2 days. It's just crazy. So glad he's okay. Obviously, very glad he's okay. What a wild situation, but tough dude, I guess. That's what I'll leave it with. Buck Munson's a tough dude. So
I actually at one of my local tracks that happened with a photographer too, and he was totally fine too. I think he finished taking pictures that night, but a guy spun in the infield and made a little contact with him. But thankfully he was fine too. I guess photographers they got to stay strong because there's race cars flying at them.
yeah. Yeah, there's a track, getting a little bit on a tangent. There's a track photographer at Granite City, and I can't remember the exact varmint, but potentially a hedgehog was on the racetrack, and they couldn't get it to go anywhere. And she, I believe her name's Emily, she just ran up and two-hand grabbed it and scurried it away and let it go. So racetrack photographers are just a different breed. I guess we'll end with that. So, but anyway, much appreciated as always for watching. I forgot to say it at the beginning, but if you're still here, please hit a like, subscribe. Any of that definitely helps the show, and any support is much appreciated. So we appreciate that, and we'll see you next week.